three teams that had high aspirations going into the season and that at one point were looking like they were going to fulfill those expectations, the Rams, the Bucs, and the Ravens. Let's start with the Rams. Was it a fluke that we saw on Monday night, the 31-10 loss to the 49ers? It was going to be 31-7, but, you had to get that late field goal in there because it makes it look not as bad in the newspaper.
Yeah.
At 31-10 instead of 31-7.
Yeah.
We got the 28-16 loss to the Titans 9 days ago. Is this something that just stuff happens, or is this sign, in your opinion, Charean, of a deeper problem with these Rams?
I'm going to say it's a fluke, Mike, because they're still 6th offensively, 11th defensively. But I do have a concern because we talk about the Eagles, that 2011 Eagles dream team, as they dubbed themselves. They went 4-8 before finishing 8-8. This reminds me a lot of that. Sometimes there's too many big stars in the pie to make it work. And I do worry that that might be the case here. But Matthew Stafford, I worry more about him. I mean, this is a guy who has not won very many big games. He's not played in very many big games. He's probably played in more big games this year than he played in his entire career in Detroit. 0-3 in the postseason in his career. He has not played well the last 2 weeks. First 8 weeks, 22 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And the last 2 games, it has not been there for him. Too many interceptions for him. 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions these last 2 weeks. If he plays like that, this team has zero chance to do what they think they can do.
I said this earlier today, and I firmly believe it. Matthew Stafford is not the same kind of quarterback as a Tom Brady, a Peyton Manning, a Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers. Matthew Stafford tolerates things that they wouldn't. Even on Sunday, when Aaron Rodgers was just back after away from 10 days, there was a play where you could see he was kind of not happy with the receiver. He doesn't hide it. Tom Brady, we know, has a long history of giving people the verbal business on the sideline after a drive. You never see Matthew Stafford perturbed. You never see him agitated. You never see him upset. And I'm not saying that he should be all the time. I'm just saying that there's a time and a place for every emotion on the entire spectrum, good to bad. And sometimes you need to flash a little anger. Sometimes you need to show a little venom to get your teammates doing what they need to do. Tyler Higbee plays volleyball with that screen pass and it becomes a pick six. Yeah. You want to have a quarterback that strikes fear in the hearts of the tight end who otherwise might not secure that ball and cough it up and it becomes a pick six. Not that that means it'll never happen, but I just feel like there's an element there that Stafford has always been lacking, and it becomes glaring when the Rams lose. Now, when you're 7-1, it's not a factor. When everything's great, it's not a factor. The challenge becomes, Charean, when adversity arrives, is there enough there from the player leadership? And if it's not coming from Stafford, it's got to come from somebody else. The player leadership has to turn this around. It can't just be the coaches. So I think we're going to find out how much Stafford is going to be part of the solution from a player leadership standpoint.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, Mike. Andrew Whitworth has played in this game forever. He's a good leader, but you need your quarterback to be that leader. We saw that in Carolina, right? With Cam Newton comes right in, takes over. Even though he didn't start, you could tell who was the leader of that offense. I don't see that from Matthew Stafford, and you need that from your quarterback.
And one of the reasons Odell Beckham Jr. became as demonstrative as he was with the Giants, I believe, is because Eli Manning was just like Matthew Stafford. Flatline.
Yep.
And again, sometimes that's great, but sometimes you need to break away from that pattern at the right time. You have to know when to do it, and you have to be willing to do it. And it can have a hell of an impact, especially when 99% of the time you are that guy that is never bothered. When you are never bothered and then suddenly you are, that gets everyone's attention even more. All right, the Buccaneers, speaking of a quarterback who is not afraid to let it know that he's bothered, it's Tom Brady. They're now 6-3. They've lost 2 in a row. They were 6-1. They lose to the Saints without Drew Brees and then without Jameis Winston. They lost to Trevor Siemian on their way to their bye, and then on the way out of their bye, they lose to Taylor Heineke in Washington, and it was ugly on both sides of the ball. So, look, we saw them struggle last year. We saw them find the gas pedal down the stretch, and there surely will be a team that finds that gas pedal down the stretch. But, I thought this was going to be, we pick up where we left off. We have all the same players. We just keep going. Tom Brady's got that relentless drive to get number 8. It's all there. All the ingredients are in place. Remember they were talking about him going 17-0, and here they are, 0-2 after starting 6-1. Is it a fluke, or are they flawed?
Well, I'm going to say it's a fluke because they're 5-0 with AB. AB's coming back. Gronk's coming back. They're 2-1 with Gronk, 4-2 without him. But they're only 1-3 without AB. When they get those two guys in, I think they're a different offense. But, Mike, this has been a different offense at home and away. They're 4-0 at home, 2-3 and away. They're averaging 40.5 points at home, 18.5 points on the road. And Tom Brady's been a different quarterback at home and away. Home, 18 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Away, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And I'm sorry, but the crowd in Washington does not make that much difference. So I don't know what it is when they go on the road. They were so good on the road in the postseason, as we know, and then got to play the Super Bowl at home. Well, now you got to figure out a way to win on the road. And guess what? You may be on the road in the postseason, too.
And isn't it odd in a year where there really is no home field advantage to be that bad on the road? So they've got to figure it out, or they're going to have to go on the road in the playoffs like they did last year. 3 games on the road, at Washington, at New Orleans, at Green Bay, to qualify for the Super Bowl game that was played at home. They look like a lock to be the 1 seed or maybe at worst the 2 seed. Now they're going to have to scratch and claw. And it's good news for the Cowboys. You know, it occurred to me last night, and I tweeted this, is it possible the Cowboys are the best team in the conference? Right now it's the Cowboys and the Packers, and I wish they played this season.
Yep.
It'd be great to see them play, and maybe we'll see them play in the postseason. But I think you can make the argument the Cowboys are right there. And if they hadn't stepped on a rake against the Broncos, we would be saying the Cowboys are the best team right now. In the entire NFL, they'd be the only one-loss team.
Yeah, and I would love to see the Cowboys, Mike McCarthy, go against his former team, the Packers, and Aaron Rodgers. I think that would be a fun matchup in the playoffs wherever it occurred.
Okay, so I think we both agree that this is probably a short-term thing. They really need Gronk back. He hasn't been at full capacity since week 3 when he got his ribs broken against the Rams. They need him back. They need him healthy. Give him as much time as he needs because you're going to need him in January. The Ravens, they were looking good, and now they lost at home in ugly fashion to the Chargers, went into their bye week, barely beat the Vikings, short week. They got thumped by the Dolphins in Miami 22-10. They released Le'Veon Bell today, which was kind of a surprise because – you know, it was weird seeing him in Ravens uniform. It was weird seeing him wearing number 17, but he was okay. He was getting it done, but he's gone now, and the Ravens are 6-3. They've got to get it together. Is this a fluke, 1-2 over the last 3 games, or do you see flaws with the Baltimore Ravens?
Well, I'm going to say they're flawed, Mike, and it has nothing to do with Lamar and Harbaugh, who I think are the best at what they do, and they'll win some games and stay competitive, but I don't see this as a Super Bowl team because of all the injuries that they've had. And by the way, they really miss Matthew Judon. They're second in offense, and the passing offense has really gotten going with the weapons now that Lamar has, and partly because of all those injuries, too, at running back. But they're 24th in defense. They're 32nd against the pass. We're just not used to seeing that out of the Ravens. This is just not a very good defense right now, and I don't know how you fix it. I don't know if they will fix it. It may take off-season and bringing in some new guys to get this defense fixed, but it's not the defense we're used to seeing in Baltimore.
Well, and it really was stunning on Thursday night to see the repeated safety blitzes and Greg Roman and company having no answers for it. When you go back and listen to what John Harbaugh said right after that game, he probably wasn't real thrilled with Roman. And he was a guy who came into the season, I think, you know, under duress, hot seat. And there have been plenty of offensive coordinators who have not survived under Harbaugh. And remember, it was during the 2012 season that Cam Cameron got fired in December.
Yeah.
Jim Caldwell took over, and they won the Super Bowl that year. So when that is in your memory bank as the head coach, I wouldn't rule that out if this offense doesn't improve. If they don't have an answer, if the Bears blitz them with defensive backs into oblivion like they did the other night, I think anything's possible. And again, it's going to be some team that makes the right move, that stays healthy, that gets lucky, that benefits from bad calls, and we know the bad calls are inevitable. Somebody in December is going to take off. And for now, it's just kind of hold it together. If you're one of these teams that's struggling, and they're all going to have a chance in December to see what they can do.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.